People subscribed to my channel will already know who Dogman is, but not only do I want to explain the legend to new unbeknownst viewers, I also have a few corrections and clarifications I want to make. So if you don't care about either of those things, you can skip to this timestamp to get to the main course of this video. Appetizers, man. But yeah, in my previous Dogman video, I traced the origins of the Dogman legend to something much greater than it actually more than likely originates from. In 1987,
but then there was the bite of 87.
The bite?
Yeah.
A disc jockey named Steve Cook would record a song he titled The Legend, the lyrical content supposedly coming completely from his imagination, and for April Fool's Day of the same year, he would play the song on WTCM FM, radio station in Traverse City, Michigan. And not only would people start to request the song to be played more and more, Steve would start receiving calls from people claiming they've seen the exact creature described in the song around town. This creature being a wolf-like man hybrid. Thus, the Dogman legend was born. Not from some random dude chasing down and poking a stray dog with a stick, but a joke song meant solely just to make people laugh. Now, my second and final part for the intro of this video is actually an elaboration. Quite a few people in the comments of my first Dogman video did not like the smoke explanation that I gave for the first video I featured. And I get it, I didn't really explain it that well. See, the reason I think it's smoke from the cigarette or cigarette adjacent thing the person was smoking is because when you're trying to film something at maximum zoom on your phone, you're not looking at your subject in real life. If you did, you'd probably just have a shitty recording of the ground beneath whatever you capture. So instead, you look through the phone like a viewfinder. And in doing this, if something even as small as a fly came across the front of the lens, you'd probably get spooked. It'd be a bit of a jump scare. I also don't know why people lean more towards it being an emu. Emus are not 10 fucking feet tall, guys. Come on. But yeah, this is why double checking your sources is important, and why you should explain things good. Onto the actual video. The man in this video is named Martin Groves, who I had no idea about until I started researching for this video. He seems to be a slightly well-known member of the Bigfoot and Dogman communities, but some on the Dogman subreddit might call him infamous, as his claims about missing people in the LBL, or Land Between the Lakes National Recreational Area in Kentucky, are, as one Redditor describes, lacking verified documentation, as in they seem to be somewhat unfounded, or at the very least exaggerated, which is ironic considering most of the popular posts on r/Dogman. User DogmanBBQ has posted 2 separate videos in an attempt to showcase gross continuous exaggeration of how many people supposedly died or went missing in the LBL area, had their death certificates marked as, in Groves' own words, killed by unknown creature, or as he says in an interview he did on the Confessionals podcast, unknown animal attack. Now I do have to say Dogman BBQ's video is a little bit misleading, as it depicts the number of missing people Martin has claimed as climbing up over time, when it's actually a much more interesting timeline. It took me a good 2 hours to trace back where all these clips came from because they did not link anything. Dogman Barbecue, I love your name, but fuck you. Anyways, the first clip comes from August 26th, 2022, where Martin gives the number of missing/killed people as 18. Second is from June 16th of 2024, where he says 11, when just a year before on June 9th, 2023, he gave the number of 25 to 28 people, as shown in the third clip, with the final and largest number being 38 on October 26, 2024, which is an even larger leap from the 11 number he gave just 4 months prior. And I'll add 2 more numbers onto this timeline, because why not? I gotta make use of my research somehow. On March 15th, 2026, Martin, who might have already been aware of the flack he was getting online for this inconsistent number, prefaces his answer by saying,
"We have a number right now, and it fluctuates because sometimes the people that are on the missing list will later either be found and they disappeared of their own accord,
before then saying,
The best guess, and I mean this, the best guess I have between myself, other researchers, other investigators, I had a list at one time that led up to 38. I had to drop one of them off because that ended up being unfortunately, a intentional, they took off into the woods and committed suicide. And at the time, we didn't know what it was. So, but estimate since 1967 in the park, since 67 when the park was created, I've got anywhere between 30 and 40 people as a good guesstimate.
What's even more crazy than this ever-changing number of victims is Martin's claim that he's talked to between 2,000 and 3,000 witnesses of strange phenomenon in the LBL area since 1993. Quick math gives us the number of 60 witnesses a year if we go with the lesser 2,000 figure, which on the surface isn't too outlandish if you ignore the fact Martin was still working as a deputy sheriff till around 2013, but it becomes a bit more hard to believe when you take into account the criteria of these witnesses. They're all supposed to be people who have been to the LBL area, who have also witnessed some kind of strange phenomenon, whatever that means, who also know who Martin is, and cared enough to contact him about it. But I digress. In the same episode of the Confessionals podcast I mentioned before, the host and mainly Martin detail an event that happened between Martin, one of his partners at the sheriff's department, and a firefighter they call Bubba in the year of 1993. And this is where Martin's claims somehow get crazier. So buckle up as this story is drawn out as hell, and I tried my best to condense it, but I mean, just look at this raw transcript I copied almost word for word off of YouTube instead of just copying and pasting it because there was minor discrepancies that made some sentences make no sense. Shit is long, unlike my schlong. So again, this takes us back to the year 1993, and one of Martin's fellow sheriff's deputies invites him to go out hunting and camping, a routine of theirs to blow off steam after especially hard work weeks. So Martin says yes, and when their break rolls around, they both hop into presumably the partner's truck. By the way, I'm only going to refer to him as Martin's partner because I was unable to find a single instance of Martin giving him an actual name. But Martin and his partner head off into the forest, specifically in the aforementioned LBL area. It's upon getting there after setting up camp and deciding to head two separate ways to cover more ground for turkey hunting that Martin witnesses the first signs that something isn't quite right in this forest. It's quieter than usual, and throughout his whole solo expedition, he never spots one animal. This lack of luck leads Martin out of a different part of the forest and onto an old logging road that didn't get much traffic at the time of the story. He decides to take a little rest. Not too long after this, he hears a truck approaching. Fellow hunter that he'd come to find out that not only did they share the all too common southern moniker, Bubba, which is what I'll be calling him for the short rest of the time he's in the story, but that Bubba's profession was pretty similar to Martin's, as he told him he was a firefighter. They talked to each other for a little while longer before bidding farewell, and Bubba starts to walk back to his truck, but stops dead in his tracks and turns back around, telling Martin that something had been circling his camp the night prior, and he wasn't sure what it was. The two figured out that their sites were only a mile apart, so Bubba invites Martin and his partner to come and take a look if they'd like, to hopefully find out what was causing all the ruckus. They say a final goodbye and Bubba gets in his truck and drives off on the logging road, and after a bit more resting, Martin decides to head back to his camp. It's on the way there that stuff starts to get even weirder. Martin spots what he thinks is another fellow hunter dressed in what looks like a ghillie suit. So he calls out and says hey, trying to be friendly, but he gets no response. And somehow, some way, just as Martin spotted this person, they simply disappeared. One moment they're there, and the next they're gone. This wasn't strange enough, a collage of noises begins to erupt all around Martin. The sound of rocks being banged against each other, whistling and indistinct metallic noises. The finale to this weird forest symphony being what sounds like a large metal door scraping along concrete. It's with this that the forest manages to get even more silent, this urging Martin to travel just a little bit quicker back to his campsite, spotting what he thinks is Coyote out of the corners of his eyes as he traverses. When he finally makes it back, his partner is white in the face. He had come from the opposite direction as Martin and had been trying to set up blinders in a cornfield, but someone was throwing rocks, sticks, and other objects at him, and when he decided he'd had enough, he spotted what could only be described as two orangey red orbs fly over him into the part of the forest that Martin had just come from. Soon night would fall, and the two are just left with the glow of their lanterns and the fire at the center of their sight. But amidst the orangey glow, Martin spots a light that's not their own. At first, he thinks it's a person smoking a cigarette behind a tree. However, he cannot even begin to investigate, as, similarly to Martin's partner in the field, the two start getting rained down on by any materials readily available to whoever was surrounding them. Martin assumes something quite level-headed, that maybe they had set up camp too close to somebody's moonshine still, and they were trying to run them out of there. The two call out that they're off-duty cops, making it known that they're also armed. And almost in retaliation, whatever is out there hurls an almost 35-pound rock at the two, it just narrowly missing them both and landing in between them at their feet. This was no longer some hillbillies being protective of their moonshine still. This was attempted murder. The throwing continues in addition with growling noises, and before they know it, whoever was behind the tree comes out and begins to walk towards them. It's hard to make out at first, but when the edges of Martin's lamp hit the stranger, it's something Martin had never seen before. A bipedal wolf-like creature with glowing eyes, standing somewhere between 6 and 8 feet tall. The two raise their firearms, but neither can bring themselves to shoot it just yet, mainly because of the confusion of what this is. The possibility that it's just a man dressed in the suit plaguing their minds. This being all the more difficult to ignore, as with the drawing of their guns, the creature stopped in its tracks. Calling back to his religious background, Martin begins to pray, reciting Psalms 23, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He repeats it as the creature, already halted, begins to walk backwards, almost being put under a spell. But unfortunately, as soon as Martin stops reciting the verse, the creature begins to walk towards them again, and instincts kick in. He fires off 2 shots at it, and it runs off. His partner fires off a few more in the same direction, until it runs too far away for them to hear it anymore. The two aren't out of this quite yet though. They make a break for the truck, Martin hopping in the bed, and his partner in the driver's seat, fumbling with the key to start the ignition due to the sheer anxiety that has been brought onto them. He finally manages to turn on the truck, and the headlights fire up along with it, completely illuminating the cornfield that he was in that day. And in it stand 2 different creatures, although very similar to the wolf-like one from before, was different. Martin later recounting that these were definitely 2 Bigfoots. His partner throws the truck into drive and they head out, but soon he screams, and a second later there's a large thump that comes from the front of the truck. Yet another creature had come out from the creek and ran into the road, and the partner had hit it. It now clinging to the side of his truck and trying to climb into the back of the bed with Martin. Thankfully, its grip was not tight enough, and the two made it out of there, physically unscathed. They attempted to report what had happened to them at a checking station the next day, but the park ranger and his associates there simply did not believe them, even getting mad at the two, calling them city boys that didn't know what they were doing, as well as accusing them of hunting bears and other things that could possibly get them arrested. After a while of this, Martin hears a truck passing by the station. He looks out of the window and sees a tow truck. Attached is a pickup with a fireman's tag on the back. It was Bubba's truck, with Martin later finding out that the man had been ripped to shreds along with his camp. The death certificate reading, "Killed by unknown animal," with only Martin and his partner knowing what had truly got him. And that is the Bubba 1993 story. Note, I did take very small creative liberties to make this telling more cinematic and compact than the one from the video I transcribed, but I did not add anything major. It's honestly a pretty thrilling tale if you ignore the random mention of orbs. This detail actually being so silly that Martin has left it out of other retellings of the story, one specifically being at the first Dogman Cryptid Conference in Paris, Tennessee, back in 2022. This makes me curious as to how he tells it in whichever of his 3 books this story is included in, but not curious enough to buy them just for a 30-second part of a video. Sorry. Hit that fucking like button, I'll buy physical versions of the books. I'll put 60 some odd bucks in this man's pocket. I don't care. My throat hurts. Fortunately, that's kind of the end of what's interesting about Martin Grove's whole ordeal. To me, it sums up to a person making very bold claims about an area they grew up around, showing no proof, and the skeptical members of these communities being unable to find any concrete evidence that disproves the claims, leaving this in a sort of not proven, but also not debunked limbo that I'm not sure it'll ever get out of. Thank you all for watching. I've started posting to the second channel, so if you're interested in hearing me read even more batshit insane stories than the Bubba 1993 tale, go check it out. First video includes a dude who believes he's made contact with a praying mantis type alien being that calls him a bitch in his dreams. So yeah, exciting stuff. I appreciate you for watching to the end. I know these long YouTube videos are hard compared to TikTok, so thank you, I appreciate it. And don't let the stickman bite.